Welcome, and prepare to be amazed as I show you a setup that I've been building and iterating on for the past 5 years. Now, this is the ultimate setup for programming, gaming, and of course, content creation. In fact, I actually have 3 setups. The first setup is an M1 Mac Mini, the second one is an absolutely overkill PC, and the last one is a docking station for my MacBook Pro. Now, if you're wondering why I need 3 different setups, then stick around until the end of the video where I talk to you about their use cases and show you all of the super high-end tech that I'm using in each setup. With that said, let's dive into the tube. So for any setup, you need a good room. Now, the room that I'm using is a spare bedroom in my house. Fortunately, I own this house, so I can do any customizations that I like. Now, what I've done is added some custom soundproofing here on each of the walls, as well as the ceiling, just to give it a nice dead sound and make it super quiet when I'm recording. I've also got a nice window here to let in some natural light, and I have a shade on that window so I can pull that down and of course kind of make it a full blackout scene. Throughout the room, I'm using different hue lights. This allows me to kind of set the scene and set the different color profile when I'm doing a recording or when I'm doing something like gaming. So now onto the desks. Obviously, I have a large L desk, which is made up of 2 countertops, both that are from IKEA. Now, I also have some drawers that are from IKEA. This is a very popular setup. Quite a few people buy it, and it's relatively inexpensive, especially if you're going for a desk kind of the size that I have here. Now, I like having a nice deep desk so that I can have a ton of stuff on it, and I'm not kind of crammed or feel like my monitors are too close to my face. Now, beyond that, you can see my main setup is those 3 monitors. This is where I spend about 80% of my time, and this is connected to my Windows machine where I'm doing gaming, editing, programming, all kinds of stuff. Really, most of my work is done in this area. Then to the left of that, I have my M1 Mac Mini setup, and this is solely used for recording audio. Literally all I do on that computer is run Logic Pro. I have some filters set up in there, and that's what records the audio that you're hearing right now. Moving on to my right side, we have another setup. This is a docking station for my MacBook Pro. Now, the reason I need this is I do a lot of iOS development. It's not super fast on the M1 Mac Mini, so instead I use my MacBook Pro, and that's where I kind of use Xcode. I'll go in and do iOS specific dev, connect my phone to the computer, etc. So I just made a second setup over there, so I have one Mac side and one Windows side, and that is actually using a standing desk that can go up and down. Sometimes if I'm building computers, I'll clear that desk off and put it on there. I like to stand up when I'm doing all of those builds. So next, I guess I'll quickly mention to you my chair. So I am using a Herman Miller Aeron chair. This is the classic version. I got this a long time ago. It's been holding up completely fine. Now, even though this is an extremely expensive chair, I would definitely recommend it to anyone who's sitting down for a long period of time. It has pretty much reformed my back, completely changed my posture, and I know that this is a worthwhile investment. So I think the new ones are going for almost $1,500, but a chair of this caliber is definitely something that you should consider, especially if you're going to be moving into a software engineering career where you're going to be sitting 8, 10, 12 hours every single day. All right, so now let's dive into some computer specs. So the first computer I'll start with is my main computer. This is the one that I built myself. Now, in this computer, I'm using a Ryzen 9 3900X. I have 64 gigabytes of RAM, I'm using a 4090, and then I have dual Elgato 4K capture cards, which actually capture the video from both of my professional cameras. Beyond that, I have 4 terabytes of NVMe SSD storage. That's typically used for a scratch disk when I'm recording, or for games, applications, etc. And then if you're wondering where I store all of my videos, I actually have a home file server, which I'll talk to you about later in this video. Regardless, let's move on to my M1 Mac Mini. This is a pretty standard configuration, has the M1 chip. I just upgraded it to have 16 gigabytes of RAM so it can handle some larger audio recordings, and that's pretty much it. Next, we have my MacBook Pro. Now, this is a 16-inch MacBook Pro from 2019. I believe it has an i7 in it, 16 gigs of RAM, a basic GPU. Nothing insane, but it is a fairly powerful laptop. Now, I actually have a few other machines tucked away that I don't use too often. One of them that you might find interesting is the Asus ROG Zephyrus Duo 15. Absolutely ridiculous name. Regardless, this is a dual screen laptop I got as a part of a sponsorship that has a 2080, an i9, 64 gigs of RAM, 2 terabytes of storage. Absolutely beast laptop, but it has about 45 minutes of battery life when you're actually using all of those components. Lastly, I do have an iPad. This iPad is what I use if I'm doing any kind of whiteboarding style questions or trying to explain something with like a pen and pencil. Alright, so now that you know my main machines, let's talk about how I view my main machines, so my monitors. Now you may have noticed that every single monitor I have in this room is actually from BenQ. Now I've been primarily using BenQ monitors for the past 5 years or so, just because I really prefer the colors that they have and the different features that are on the monitors. However, recently BenQ actually hooked me up with entirely new monitors, replacing every single monitor I have in this office, so now they are the official monitor company for Tech with Tim. Regardless, let me go through the different monitors that I have. It can be a little confusing with the model numbers, but I'll link everything in the description in case you want to check it out yourself. Alright, so let's begin with my main setup here. The primary monitor that I have in the middle is the BenQ EX2710U, which is a 27-inch 4K 144Hz display. I have this because I like to game on my kind of main monitor, so that's why I went with something that was so high-end here. Beyond that, both my vertical monitors are the same. They are both 27 inches, and they are the PD2705U. They are also 4K, but they're just 60 Hz because I don't need a high refresh rate display for my secondary monitors. Now for my Mac Mini, I have a PD3420Q. This is a 34-inch 4K ultra-wide monitor that looks amazing. Now, although I can honestly say that I do recommend these monitors, I love them, they look great. If I didn't love them, I'd swap them out. They're definitely not budget friendly, or a great option if you're just doing some basic coding. These are really for someone like myself who's doing content creation, gaming, etc. So if you're someone who's just getting into coding, then you'll probably like the other monitors that I have in my MacBook Pro setup. So in that setup, I'm using two GW2785TC monitors. Again, I'll link these in the description. Now I'm using the 27-inch version of these monitors, but they also come in 24 inches, and they actually have a coding mode and are specifically designed for programmers. Now this mode works fantastic. It makes it a little bit easier to read your code, gives you some better contrast, and these monitors being 1080p and 60 Hz are a much more budget-friendly option, and they also come with some of BenQ's technology, like the eye care technology. Now what this will do is automatically adjust the brightness of your screen based on the ambient lighting, and this is something that's a little bit underrated and you might not notice a ton unless you don't have it. So for me, since I've been using BenQ monitors forever, I'm so used to it doing this, and it really does have a massive effect on the strain of your eyes when you're able to dynamically adjust that brightness without having to go in and constantly kind of tap on all of those features. Now the monitor comes with a ton of other features. It has a mic, it has speakers. I don't know if you guys care about that. Obviously you can adjust it, you can move it up and down, etc. The reality is it's just a great entry-level option for any of you that are looking for a secondary display, and you can kind of do something like what I did here, where you set up either a vertical monitor or kind of two of these monitors here and connect something to a docking station, and it's just going to be a more pleasant experience when you're working at home and not from some remote location. Alright, so now let's move on and talk about some peripherals, specifically my keyboard and mouse. So for both my M1 Mac Mini and my main PC, I use the exact same keyboard. This is the HyperX Alloy Origins with cherry blue switches. Now these are super loud switches, but these are the ones that I prefer. And even though this keyboard isn't super high end, I actually prefer it over a lot of the super way more expensive versions. I think it's only like $100, but it's been one of my favorite keyboards for about the past 2 years. Now for my Mac Pro setup, I actually have a Keychron K1. That's just a more compact keyboard. I wanted to try one of those out. It's not my favorite, but it works for that setup. Okay, so moving on to my mouse. So all three of the mice that I use are Logitech MX Master mice. I actually have two of the V3 ones and then one of the V1. If you're not sure, they have like V1, V2, V3. I think that might be up to V4 now of this Logitech MX Master. Super popular mouse. It is really expensive, almost the same price as my keyboard. However, definitely worth it and something I can highly recommend. So continuing, let's have a look at some different peripherals. So I always like to listen to music when I'm coding or really doing any kind of work at all, but I hate wearing headphones. So that's why I invested in these KEF LSX speakers, which sound fantastic and connect to my Audient ID14 audio interface. Now this is a bit of a higher end audio interface that has some better preamps, and this is what handles my mic input to my computer, as well as routing the different audio between something like headphones if I have those plugged in, or my speakers. Now this might be kind of a small touch or a small note here, but I personally love having physical buttons on my desk for controlling the volume, muting the mic, doing a hardware mute, not just a software mute. So I do really appreciate having this kind of little control board in front of me. I know I could go a bit crazier and get some more boards here, but I do like having these kind of physical buttons. Now I have a ton of other peripherals I could go through, but the main one I'll mention here is my BenQ e-reading lamp. Now I've been talking about this for probably 4 years if you've been following my channel. I have the same lamp I had back in first year university right now, but this thing is awesome. It goes right over top of your monitor. It's anti-glare, and what it does is provide a little bit of light to your eyes when you're actually looking at your screen. Most programmers are looking at just a plain screen. They have no real light in their room other than maybe a window or something. So having this light actually drastically reduces the strain on your eyes. I can say that from experience using it for a ton of years, and you can kind of adjust the color temperature and the brightness of it. And also if you're just doing something like writing or reading a book, it's kind of nice to have that right over top of your setup. So definitely recommend that if you want to check it out, something that honestly I don't think I'd not have in any of my setups going forward. All right, so now let's get into some of the more expensive stuff, which is my recording or content creation equipment. So usually I record right here at my desk in this kind of scene that you're seeing right now, and I have two cameras. I have my main camera, which is the Canon 90D, and then I have a pretty high-end Sigma lens here, which has an f1.8 aperture. That allows me to get the kind of background blur that you're seeing. And then I have a secondary camera, which is a different angle. I usually do shorts and stuff with that one, and this is the Fuji X-T4. This is a mirrorless camera. Again, pretty high-end camera, kind of in the same line as the Canon 90D. Now, both of these connect to capture cards in my main PC, so when I'm recording, I actually don't record on the camera. I record from the HDMI output directly in OBS on my computer, allowing me to do pretty much infinite recordings and not worrying about, filling up SD cards and all of that. Now, of course, for my microphone, I'm using the famous Shure SM7B. Now, this is the one that all the YouTubers use. I'm sure you guys know it. This connects to a cloud lifter, which gives it a bit more gain because these mics are very, very quiet by default. You need to kind of boost the gain up. And then what I do is actually put this into a mic splitter, and this splitter splits the mic signal to my main PC and to my Mac Mini. Now, that's because the Mac Mini actually records the audio, and then I need to split the audio to my main PC so I can use this microphone for like Teams calls, meetings. I can record the audio if I'm streaming or something like that. But the reason I go to the M1 Mac Mini is because the recording quality is just way better. So I kind of need this mic signal in two different places, which is why I have this more complicated kind of splitter setup configured. Now, of course, I also have some lights here. I control all of these with a remote control. And the way I've set everything up is so that I can pretty much just sit down, press like 2 or 3 different buttons and be ready to record, not have to worry about doing a set, setting up the lights, setting up the camera, getting a tripod out. I want to be able to just go as fast as possible. So that's kind of how I've optimized my setup. Okay, so now quickly, I'm just going to go through a few extra things in my setup that didn't really fit into a section. So first of all, pretty much everything you see that's connected to power, especially if it's a computer, is running off of a UPS, which is an uninterruptible power supply. I have 3 of them in this office, and they all have all of the computers, monitors, etc. on battery backup, meaning that if the power goes out, these are going to be protected, and I can actually use them for a few minutes, allowing me to kind of save my work or close some things up before I have to shut off my machine. Other than that, I've actually got a 20 terabyte home file server. This is what allows me to work on all these different machines and kind of share different files between them super easily. Since I'm using different operating systems, I can't just use AirDrop or something like I would use on Mac. So I actually have this dedicated file server that I built myself that stores all of my videos, all of my audio files, etc., and allows me to very easily transfer the files and access them between my different computers. So that is my setup. I could probably do an hour-long video going through everything, showing you the cable management, showing you all of the million things that I forgot to talk about here, but I think this was a good high-level overview and hopefully gave you a little bit of inspiration for things maybe you can add to your setup, or at least just entertained you a bit so you can go through and see kind of all of this high-end tech gear. Anyways, I want to hear what you think. Leave a comment down below and let me know what you thought of my setup. And if you're curious, I have a few older setup tour videos that you can go have a look at that have some different tech and are in like my university dorm room. It's kind of a blast from the past there if you want to take a look at it. So I'll leave those on the screen here.